Hello. Welcome once again to Stuff and Things, where I like to talk about stuff and occasionally even things. I'm your good friend Bradley, and today is a very pleasant Sunday Stuff and Things. And on this pleasant Sunday Stuff and Things, we have stuff and things to talk about, including upcoming videos, things that you can look forward to on Stuff and Things and Stuff and Things Plays. We'll talk about the next choice, the next item that we're going to be highlighting in the next Timeless Style episode. We will talk a little bit about how I got one of the things that I would like to highlight in my Timeless Style series. It's kind of a fun story from when I was a young lad of 17, a nice nostalgic story. And then of course we'll have your questions, comments, and feedback in hashtag askstuffandthings. So let's get into it. All right, gang, as I am speaking and waving my hands around, maybe you will notice that I have a different watch on my wrist at the moment. And the next video that we were going to be posting on Stuff and Things this Wednesday will be about this watch. It will in fact be a box opening of this watch, but with a little bit of a twist, because this isn't actually the watch that I thought I was getting. It's not the watch that I tried to purchase. It is a Casio G-Shock though. A kind of watch that I never thought I would own, but I'll talk a little bit about the road I went down to arrive at purchasing a Casio G-Shock and which one I actually ended up with. Please watch that video this Wednesday. I know there are a lot of people out there who kind of sneer at the digital Casio G-Shocks and a lot of people who are really obsessed with them and collect them like crazy. I found all sorts of information when I was trying to find out what this watch is when I got the wrong watch. I found a ton of information online. People are really dedicated to these G-Shock watches, so check that video out. That'll be coming up this Wednesday. Then of course, I finally received my tin of GLP's Maltese Falcon. So that will be the next pipe blend up for review. We'll be doing a first impressions video first, and then we'll do a full review after that. As time permits, as my schedule permits, like I said, we're going to do the G-Shock box opening. We're going to maybe insert the first impressions video the next week after that. We may be getting into Timeless Style after that. So all of these things, I'm trying to schedule everything out, but they're all coming. And then of course, every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday on Stuff and Things Plays, you can watch Kevin the Kurt's continuing adventures in Elden Ring. Please enjoy. Okay, so as some of you may have noticed, hopefully some of you have watched these videos on the channel as well, I have embarked on a new series called Timeless Style, where I try to take an iconic, timeless piece of mostly menswear and highlight it in a video, talk about the history of the item a little bit, talk about the specific version of the item that I'm showing you on the video, and then talk a little bit about what I think of it, how to wear it, all that good stuff. So far we have done, what did I start with? The Barracuda G9 Harrington jacket. We went with the Ray-Ban Ray-Ban Wayfarer sunglasses after that. Then we did the cowboy boot, which is very broad, but we focused in on the Chisos #1 cowboy boot. And the last one I did was on the Shot Perfecto 613 leather jacket. Please check out those videos if you haven't already. There is a playlist for Timeless Style, so check that out. And in last week's Sunday Stuff and Things, I was asking for more suggestions, things that people would like to see on the next Timeless Style video. I have my own list as well, which I'm going to bring up now, actually. There we go. And some people suggested some things. Some things have been suggested multiple times. But as far as what we got for feedback from last week's Sunday Stuff and Things, we had quite a few people suggesting things, but just to name a few, Magnus Nielsen said Clark's Desert/Chukka boots, Sixpence hats, Shearling bomber jackets, MA1 bomber jacket, Borsalino fedora hats, Aaron sweaters, Totes Magoats said Levi's 501 jeans, Converse Chuck Taylor sneakers, Wrangler 13MW7 jeans, which I haven't heard of, members only jacket, Letterman's jacket, Gucci horsebit loafers, Stetson open road hat, getting very specific here, Navy pea coat, Doc Martens 1460 boots, Red Wings mock toe boots, Mad Max suggested newsboy hats. So a lot of different suggestions out there, some of them quite good. And I have a list of things that I have written down myself. I have pea coat, newsboy cap, engineer boots, Levi trucker jacket, Chuck Taylors, Levi 501s, Ray-Ban aviator glasses, duffel coat. The Gloverall is, I think, the quintessential duffel coat brand, cafe racer style leather jacket, and a trench coat / a Burberry trench coat. And I think I've narrowed it down to two things for the next video, either the Levi's trucker jacket, which I own already, or a navy pea coat, which I also own. And the only thing that might be preventing me from doing the pea coat first, which is kind of what I want to do, is my pea coat is very old. It was made in 1966. And I can't remember how I actually dated that, but at the time when I did date it, I did a lot of research, and whatever I found led me to believe that the coat was made in 1966. And it is a beautiful, actual Navy pea coat, not just like a Gap knockoff pea coat. It was purchased, or it was made for Navy servicemen, and actually it was an officer's pea coat, so it had epaulets on the shoulders, had the beautiful brass buttons. It is the thickest, most luxurious wool felt I have ever seen, and a beautiful dark navy color. It has corduroy linings in the pockets. It's just a beautiful coat, an amazing coat. The problem is that it's starting to show its age a little bit. The pocket lining is starting to rip out. There are some ripped seams under the collar. The button holes are starting to fray around them, or around the stitching. And so I didn't want to do a review of it or do a timeless style video on it until I actually was able to repair it. So I took it to a tailor, and they seemed not very optimistic about what they'd be able to do with it. But I left it with them, and hopefully in a couple weeks' time, we'll see what happened. I wanted to get it cleaned too, but the cleaner wouldn't clean it until some of the stitching issues have been taken care of. It's such an old coat, and it's so, I guess it sounds kind of weird to say important to me, but I've had it for a very long time. I've had it since I was 17 years old, and there's a lot of nostalgia wrapped up with that coat. So that being said, let me tell you the story of how I got this jacket, or this coat. When I was a young lad of 17, we had a store in town called Value Village, which many of you I'm sure have heard about. They do, I think they still exist. It doesn't exist in Bellingham anymore where I live, but it used to, and they sell old clothing. Vintage clothing, or just not vintage clothing, but clothing that people have donated. They clean it up, they put it out on the rack, and you can buy it. And when I was 17, I was very much into purchasing vintage clothes. I wore a lot of like 50s style rayon collared shirts, and like kind of looked like Kramer basically when I was 17, 18 years old. That's kind of how I dressed. And so I would fairly regularly go to Value Village and check out what they had in stock. And there was a particular day when I went there and I found this pea coat, the pea coat that I now own and that I have owned for almost 30 years now, 25 years. And I was entranced by this coat. The problem was that I think at the time it was $40, and I thought that was way too expensive. I couldn't afford $40 at the time. I might be just pulling that number out of the air, but I want to say it was around $40. Maybe even as much as 60, but I think about 40. And at the time, Value Village had this system where their tags were color-coded, so the price tag would be pink or yellow or green or whatever. And every day there would be a sale where anything with this tag color would be 50% off. Not always 50%, I think sometimes it would be 25%, but sometimes it would be 50%. And so when I found this jacket, I was like, oh my God, it's amazing. And I put it on, it fit me. It was probably a little voluminous because I was so skinny at the time. I'm still pretty skinny, but I was much more skinny when I was 17, but it fit me in the shoulders and the length and everything. It like fit my frame perfectly. And it was just the most beautiful coat I had ever seen in my entire life. And so I hid it. And I will admit to being kind of skeevy and slimy, but I hid the coat. The store wasn't the most immaculately kept at the time. There would be piles of things everywhere. Like it wasn't always, the inventory wasn't arranged perfectly. And so I found a rack and I hid it. It was one of those circular racks, and I basically shoved it inside all the clothes that were on the rack. Not the greatest thing in the world to do, I have to admit, not very honest, but I wanted it so badly. I was 17 years old. And so I would go back every single day and I would wait for the tag color of that jacket to come up as being on sale. And I would check to see if it was still there. Sometimes it wouldn't be. I would go hide it somewhere else again. And I think this went on for a couple weeks at least. And then finally, one day I went in and the tag color was the right color. That jacket was going to be on sale. And so I was ecstatic. I was running around trying to find, where did I hide it? Where did I hide it? And I remembered, went to that rack, it wasn't there. So I was like, oh my God, where is the jacket? So I started looking around, trying to kind of sidle up next to people who were in the store to see if any of them had it. Maybe it had been sold. If that was the case, and I was just completely out of luck. And then I saw a very, very rotund man with the jacket. And he was standing in front of a full-length mirror in the store, and he was trying to try it on. And he sort of shoved himself into it, and I was like, oh God, I could just imagine the seams bursting. But it did not fit him really at all. Like, it was way too small for him. And his girlfriend was there, or wife, whatever, and she was like, yeah, I don't know. And he's like, I don't know, it looks pretty good. I think it looks pretty good. And she was like, yeah. And so me, little 17-year-old Bradley, I sidled up next to them, and I was like, that's a nice jacket. And the guy's like, kind of gave me a look like, why is this weirdo inserting his opinion into this? And he's like, yeah, it's pretty nice. And I was like, doesn't look like it fits you right though, does it? And he kind of gave me a look again, like, why are you offering your opinion on this? And I turned to the girl and was like, yeah, doesn't it seem like it's too small? And she's like, yeah, I think it is too small. I think it's way too small. And he's like, well, maybe we can get it tailored. And basically, through my influence and getting her on my side, she convinced him that it was too small. He just kind of threw it back in a pile of other clothes that he had been trying on. And I waited for them to saunter off, and then I grabbed it and held it, cradled it in my arms, and once they weren't paying attention anymore, I went and purchased it for half off. So I guess it was probably $20 or something like that. I can't remember exactly. It was so long ago. And I have had that jacket ever since. It was basically my winter coat throughout all my late teens and 20s and into my 30s. I wore it on countless nights out with friends. I had beer spilled on it. I had all sorts of things happen. There was one time when I was at a bar, and at this particular bar, you would take your coat off. There was no coat check or no coat racks or anything. And you would just kind of put it near your seat and hope that nobody stole it. But I'd always keep my eye on my belongings. And I had gone up to do something, dance or something. And then I came back and the coat was gone. I was like, what? Where's my coat? And someone was like, oh, there's this guy named Chris. This guy, Chris, I think he grabbed it. And I went and looked down and I saw that Chris's pea coat was there, but it wasn't a nice pea coat. It wasn't a navy pea coat. It was just some sort of knockoff pea coat. And he had grabbed mine by mistake and left his there. So I grabbed his and I ran to every bar in town looking for this person, and then finally found him at a place called Cap Hansen's. He was surrounded by friends. I came in holding his coat and was like, that's my jacket. He was like, what? What? It's like, that's my pea coat. And he finally realized that that was the case, and he took it off and gave it back to me. So this jacket and I have been through a lot together, and I would love to feature it on a video in the Timeless Style series. I know that was kind of long-winded, but it's funny how much of an emotional attachment you can develop for a piece of clothing. And I definitely have that kind of attachment for this pea coat. All right, gang, but now it is time for your feedback in hashtag askstuffandthings. Remember, if you have a question for me and you would like it answered on the Sunday Stuff and Things, tweet at SATBradley. If Twitter is still a thing anymore, I don't even know. And I will do my best to answer your question on the next Sunday Stuff and Things. Oh, with the hashtag askstuffandthings in your tweet. Also, you can write to me on Patreon. You will go to the front of the line. If you do so there, you can leave me comments and questions and feedback on my YouTube videos as well. This week, we have feedback from last week's Sunday Stuff and Things. This is from Scottum with a nice super thanks donation. Thank you so much, Scottum. Scottum says, cracked my first tin of Maltese Falcon this week to join you for the ride. So hopefully we'll get this video done soon for you, Scottum. Really, really enjoying it so far. Might just be my new favorite Latakia blend. I hope you enjoy it as well. I did want to point out, one person mentioned in a comment on one of my videos where I was mentioning Latakia, he said, it's pronounced Latakia. And I had heard that. I know that is a thing. I don't know if that's absolutely true, but I've definitely heard that if you were in Syria, you would not say Latakia, you would say Latakia, or you would say Latakia. But just conventionally, in the pipe community, people say Latakia. Okay, so we're going to keep saying Latakia. Next, from Big Earn Bladesmith, they say, or he says, sorry, my guy, I will not be following you on Facebook. I too loathe it, as well as Twitter, with the fire of 1,000 suns. When I did have Facebook and Twitter, all it seemed to be was full of people just wanting to argue and start trouble. I said F it to Facebook 8 years ago. I kept Twitter until they randomly banned me. As to why the ban, I don't know. I stayed away from anything political and stayed out of arguments. Hell, I never really even posted much. Guess they didn't like my face. Who knows? No big loss. Yeah, I got a lot of people saying that they would not be following the Facebook page for Stuff and Things, and of course I totally understand that. I introduced the idea of us having a Facebook page by saying how much I hated Facebook and never liked using it, and I just did it because, you know, it's a marketing thing for the channel. So yeah, totally understand if nobody wants to follow the Facebook page, but if you do, there's a link in the description box below. Andrew Vidal, in the same vein, I left Facebook roughly the same time you did and never thought of looking back. However, my local KFC? I don't know what KFC is. Hopefully it's nothing horrible. Needed an online presence, so I was asked to set that up. Went through that same nightmare with a fake account to set up a business account and cursed and swore the whole way through. The Facebook overlords then decided to shut down both because they weren't verified. Yeah, I'm kind of worried about that too. Keep your eye on that, otherwise you might have the same result. Side note, I found I've been enjoying light aromatics more and more, even though I was mostly a strict English esser. Maybe it's because as you gain more experience with controlling the heat and cadence, they don't seem to be as bitey or chemical tasting? Perhaps. Next, from David Stein. Bradley, I thoroughly enjoy your timeless style series. I was totally unaware of the Shot Perfecto, but I've worn a Langlitz, a Portland company, jacket since the mid-70s. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Dave Chappelle was wearing a Shot Perfecto on SNL last night. Beautiful jackets, thanks for your vids. David, I did check out the Shot, or the man, speaking is harder than you think sometimes. I did check out the Dave Chappelle monologue from that Saturday Night Live episode on YouTube, and he's definitely wearing a Perfecto style. It looked like it wasn't a Perfecto from what I could see. I didn't get a super close up, but it seemed like the style of the belt and maybe the style of the zipper pulls and stuff maybe wasn't a Perfecto, but there are so many Perfecto knockoffs out there and some very high fashion brands that do Perfecto knockoffs that it's hard to say, but definitely a Perfecto style. Next, we have some feedback from I'm Not Going to Like Sutliff East Farthing, the video that we posted last Wednesday, if you haven't checked that out. Pacific Coast Piper said, whiskey is oaked. Oak has vanillin. That's the connection. So I was saying I didn't understand how a lot of people were saying that the East Farthing, which has a vanilla topping, was very similar to the old Frogmorton Cellar, which had an oak barrel stave, an oak whiskey stave in the blend, so it had a whiskey flavor. I do agree, or I do understand what you're saying, oak has vanillin. I still don't think they really taste similarly at all. But some people do, so to me it was just the vanilla flavor is so much more powerful than any kind of whiskey flavor you got in Cellar. Cellar just tasted like an English blend with a little touch of whiskey. And then East Farthing was like an English blend with a big dollop of vanilla over the top of it. Mike1614 says, I think I'm not going to like this. Thank you, Mike. Sirius Zenith says, if I owned a 1964 Dunhill pipe, it would not get anywhere near any aromatics. I wasn't sure I'm going to like. You do not lack courage. Thank you so much for yet another review. Yeah, everyone always mentions that. If I wouldn't typically S an aromatic in one of my Dunhills, but again, if it's just one bowl, it's not gonna do that much. People seem to think that like there's this contaminating power that different pipe blends have, that if you let them touch a pipe, that pipe will forever taste like that blend. And in my experience, you would have to a lot of that blend in that pipe before it became permanently stained. And even then, if you give it a good cleaning, it's not gonna taste like that forever. So I think ghosting, while it is something that can exist, I don't think it's nearly as a dire situation as some people make it seem. Next, we have Alan BT11. Reserve judgment on this one for a bit. I bought this blend as an experiment and really disliked the first bowl too, as too sweet and strong in vanilla, and lacking in the component tea flavors. I did keep it around, and being a cheap bastard, was determined to finish the tin rather than waste it. Had the occasional bowl, typically with coffee, almost as a dessert. Finally finished it up, and of course I ordered another tin a week later. It grows on you as a nice evening coffee foil for an occasional treat. Yeah, I'm gonna finish the tin, and I will give you guys an update maybe just during a Sunday Stuff and Things after I have finished it. And finally from Chad Curtis, online reviews have a lot of people complaining that this is nothing like Frog on a Log, Frogmorton Cellar. I definitely get the same sweet, funky flavor Frogmorton had and smell, or at least something similar. I assume it's the tang of the Orientals mixed with the light English and something to do with the vanilla. I can really taste a strong similarity, but I'm not sure exactly why. East Farthing definitely didn't have any Orientals in it as far as I can remember. It's been a week, so my mind just kind of gets rid of the information when it's no longer needed. But I'm pretty sure it didn't have Orientals, and I don't think Cellar did either. Some of the Frogmorton blends did for sure, like on the town, but I don't think Cellar did. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, a lot of people are equating the vanilla flavor to the whiskey flavor. So thanks for all the feedback, gang. Please keep that coming in. It is much appreciated. But now it is time for the very best part of the show, and that is where we thank our Patreon supporters. Remember, if you would like to support the channels on Patreon, there is a link in the description box below, and it is much appreciated. There's also that super thanks button that you can hit if you wish. But it really helps make the show go. Helps pay for the fancy camera that is filming this video, the lights that are shining upon me, blends for review such as Maltese Falcon coming up soon, and every week we like to shout out those who support the channels at $25 or more a month. People like Kirk Crompton, Glenn, Jason Buckner, Gloria Phillips, MDoftheNorth, David Gaudreau, Nick Papageorgio, John Tice, Ryan McFadin, and Finn O'Hagan. And of course the Maniacs, the crazy people who support the channels at $100 a month, people like stolid and dependable Bob Magee, and rising from the ashes of the Phoenix. And we will never forget our Hall of Fame member, our dearly departed friend, Peter Straub. Thank you all so much for the support. Thank you all so much for watching, subscribing, liking, commenting, all that good stuff. Stay tuned for the box opening of the Casio G-Shock watch, which I am wearing on my wrist right now. Actually, I don't want to show you what the model number is. This watch. And then on next week, we will either have, or the week after this coming week, we will either have the Maltese Falcon first impressions video, or we might be doing some stuff with Timeless Style, so stay tuned for that. And then every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, Stuff and Things Plays, the Elden Ring series continues. But until next time, until we meet again, I've been your good friend Bradley. You've been the audience. This has been Stuff and Things on a very pleasant Sunday Stuff and Things. I'll see you later.